the founder of Inclusive Networking, where she provides training in customized employment and services in discovery, job development, and ongoing support. Nicole grew up in Minneapolis and graduated from the University of Kansas. She was trained in customized employment through Mark Gold and Associates, and currently is a MG&A associate who trains and certifies those seeking discovery certification. Nicole's very passionate about supporting job seekers in finding meaningful competitive employment, as well as providing support and innovative training to employers, employment specialists, and job coaches to create more diverse and inclusive work environments. So she's gonna go next, and then later you're gonna meet Jean Hoff, who's a social media consultant with Inclusive Networking, and Corey Noner, and they will introduce themselves when it's their time to speak. So thank you everyone for coming today.
Thank you, Sally, for that introduction. I'm just going to make sure I can share my presentation. Let's see. Slideshow. Okay. Can you guys all see the presentation? Awesome. So thank you again to Mary, Liz, Sally. I know we met weeks ago in preparation for this. So thank you again for inviting myself and Jean and Corey, who you guys will get to hear from in a little bit. We are very honored to be a part of this meeting and to have the opportunity to meet with all of you. I just want to share a couple things that are not in my bio, but after seeing some people on this call, I think I've seen you on maybe some other calls, but I am also a Minnesota APSE board member. And something I did not share in my bio, but I'll bring up later, is I started my career as a special education teacher. So I do have that background, and will probably provide some of that lens of being a teacher and having paras. So we'll get started. I'm gonna kind of go through a little bit of background about what discovery is, go into more detail about job coaching, natural supports. I have a couple stories to share with you. And then Jean and Corey, I'm going to make sure that I stop by 3:30 so that they can do their presentation as well. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Like Sally had mentioned, I support adults with disabilities through a process called customized employment. And according to the US Department of Labor, it is defined as individualizing the employment relationship between employees and employers in ways that meet the needs of both. So the beginning of customized employment is going through a form of qualitative research called discovery. And the team performing discovery is not asking what career, business, or job would be best, or what is the best job for this person, but really answering the question of who is this person? Discovery is the foundation upon which all customization of employment rests. So discovery is really getting to know, again, that job seeker, getting to know what are their conditions, work conditions. So what are the hours someone wants to work? You know, if someone is not a morning person, then to try and find a job that starts at 7 in the morning probably is not gonna be where that person's at their best. Also figuring out, you know, what transportation is going to take place. So that's typically a barrier amongst a lot of job seekers with disabilities. So figuring out, you know, is someone going to take the bus? Are they going to, you know, receive transportation from family, from potentially a program, a school, making sure that this is all discovered during discovery as part of those conditions. You're also looking at someone's interests towards employment. And then the contributions, you know, what skills do people have? What are potential skills that can translate that we'll go into a little more detail in a little bit. And what are some past experiences that someone has had, and you can pull from that. So what's wonderful about discovery, especially coming from the teacher world, and I'm sure a lot has changed since I was a teacher, but discovery is really taking a look at a person of where they are today, having the mindset that everyone's employable, and getting to know where people are at their best. It's not comparative to other people. It's not comparative to where someone else their same age may be. It's really getting to know who they are as a person. So again, it's optimistic. It's looking for the best that people have to offer. It's descriptive, respectful, accepting, humble. A big part of discovery is getting the opportunity to meet people in that job seeker's life. So you're getting to talk and interview family members, friends, potential community members, if someone's a part of a bowling club or anything in the community, and also getting to know maybe people that the individual is supported by, some staff at school or elsewhere. And again, those individuals you would interview and talk to during discovery obviously would be shared with you by that job seeker. So it is an intimate process. It's comprehensive. It's examining all areas of life performance. So I think this piece is really important. I think sometimes it's easy for when supporting people in employment, it's easy to look at people where they are maybe during the day, at a day program, in a school environment, in a transition program. And what's really important is when you're getting to know who a person is, there's more than school. So it's important to really get to know people on the weekends, in different environments. We're all different in different environments. We all showcase different skills and interests when we're with our friends, when we're with our family. So it's really important that when discovery is taking place, that whoever is providing that discovery is really getting those opportunities to see that person in the evening, in the morning, and the weekends. Again, it's robust, it's connected, and it's bold, translating life skills to, employment possibilities. A couple more things to highlight, again, is it's identifying already existing information. So discovery is not saying, let's try this and that to see if you are employable, but it's saying you are employable. Let's take what we know about you, and where does that apply in this process and towards employment. You're translating typical activities of the person's life rather than a comparison. And again, identifying the real complexities faced by the individual and attempt to negotiate and match employment that fits rather than putting the burden of resolving complexities solely on the individual. So a brief example is the translation. So if I were doing discovery on a job seeker named Lauren, and Lauren invited me to her house and said, I want to show you my room. This would be a sentence maybe that I would write down from my discovery observation. The pictures Lauren takes on her iPhone are always framed in her room. So even though that's one piece of information or observation, there's so much you can tell from this. So from this one sentence, I would translate and pull, are the pictures, is that something that Lauren's interested in? Is that an interest or something that, she just needed to fill her wall? Putting the pictures, taking them from her iPhone. I don't know how everyone prints pictures these days, because I really don't anymore. But, when I do, I go to a CVS or a Walgreens and they have those kiosks. And when you go there, you have to ask someone, can I have the cord and can I plug my phone in? And then there's the whole touch screen to navigate and choose your picture. Well, if Lauren has pictures framed in a room, that might be a question I would ask. Lauren, do you print your pictures off? Can I see what this looks like? There are so many skills you can pull from that one task of going into the Walgreens, asking for the cord. And the way that can translate is there are many jobs that use touch screens for a cash register or different things at a job. So if you're observing during discovery that Lauren is using her iPhone, then you can translate that would be a potential skill that she could offer an employer. So again, this is a real brief background on discovery, but that's really kind of highlighting, again, getting to know people, who they are, and then translating what you observe into potential tasks for employment. So now we're going to fast forward a little and pretend Lauren and whoever we're all thinking about has the job. So when people are at employment, many people with disabilities benefit from having a job coach. And I wanted to start with this first slide because I think repetition is good for everyone. The more we hear it, the more it sticks with us. So the goal of your job, the job of the job coach, is to help an employee become independent at their job. And this is really important. I say this all the time to people I have supported and I've worked with job coaches. I think especially, here's my teacher plug, I think coming from the education world, a lot of times teachers and paras, when you're in a school setting, your job is to support that student during assignments and throughout the day. And I think a huge shift is when you are in a work setting, you're really there to provide that guidance and advocate and facilitate, but you really want to be able to fade those supports and not be as hands-on with that individual. So it's kind of a mind shift. And I think especially for people that are paras or are in that environment, it's a quick shift. So I'm going to share briefly I'm going to highlight a couple responsibilities that I think are important to touch on. So responsibilities of the job coach. First and foremost, it's really important that job coaches are sharing the expectations prior to starting. I have found in supporting people in employment, and I do job coaching as well, so I've seen this myself, is when you are not sharing your role of being that person who's eventually going to fade and supporting that employee to be independent, then you get put in a situation where employers view you as another employee. And that's something that we want to avoid. So one way of doing that is making sure right away people really understand what a job coach is. You're not there to do the job. You're not there to be another employee. You're not there in place of employers and coworkers interacting with that employee. You're there, again, to facilitate and support that employee and that employer. So offering advice and ideas, it's important to remember that you're walking into someone else's business. So even if you think something shouldn't be done a certain way, that's an opportunity to offer that advice and ideas. But again, the way the business, if it's a clothing store, decides to fold their clothes, that's how it's going to be done. It's also very important to observe the working relationships and provide feedback as needed. So we're going to get into this a little more, but beyond being a job coach and supporting that employee to complete the task, there's many other pieces of a job, as we all know, that are included, such as the relationships you build. And in building those relationships, it's really important for that job coach to have this balance of supporting those relationships for that employee to get to know their coworkers, and making sure that they don't overstep and build stronger relationships, so then it's harder to fade. So I'm going to share an example with you guys in a second to kind of explain that further. But you're modeling ways of supporting new employee. Again, you're coming into a workplace that has its own expectations, and the coworkers of the employee you support are their coworkers and not your own. So again, the best way to kind of put it all together is the role of a job coach is really to be there to facilitate and advocate, and not only support that employee with those job tasks, but really to support those relationships and natural supports. So natural supports refers to the support and assistance that naturally flows from the associations and relationships typically developed in natural environments, such as the family, school, work, and community. Natural supports can involve people, procedures, customs, tools, and benefits that are typically available in the workplace, along with individualized supports. I'm right now talking about natural supports in a work setting, but the way I'm describing and sharing about natural supports also would apply, when people are being supported in the community, post-secondary school, in college classes. It's really important that any of these supports, a peer mentor, a job coach, is really also there to provide those, to support the natural supports. So then those supports you're providing can eventually fade. So I put together kind of a little step-by-step of what would really need to get done or should be helpful in creating those natural supports. So the first thing is, again, making sure there's the expectations of, if you are a peer support and you're supporting someone in a classroom, or if I'm a job coach supporting an employee with a disability at their work, that everyone knows that your role is to eventually fade those supports, and that people know that it's their responsibility as the teacher to provide that direct instruction, provide that communication. As an employer, you're providing the training. You're not there in place of it. So that's really important to make sure that they know those expectations so it doesn't happen. Again, discussing the role of a job coach. So as part of a job coach, if you're eventually going to fade, make sure that they understand that when you're sitting in a different room or you're not always next to that employee, that's you doing your job. So people don't get confused and think, well, then what are you doing here? And again, making sure people don't confuse you for another employee and try to give you stuff to do at that job. Again, you're providing the guidance on specific supports needed. So you are there for a reason. So to say to an employer or a teacher and say, I'm just here, like, let me know if you need me. People, the reason you're there is to provide that support and guidance. So if someone is providing instruction in a way that you know that that employee or student may have a difficult time understanding, being there to bridge that gap and say, could you re-explain that and maybe provide this guidance? Or, if people are sending emails, can you provide it in bullet points, or can you send a calendar invite so that is on that student's calendar? Or in the workplace, can we have a printout of the calendar? So sometimes providing that guidance, and then eventually that's something that you don't need to do every time. So again, fading that support. And then again, supporting relationship building with coworkers, colleagues, and supported employees. So what I want to do, and then I'm going to share an example in a second, but I just want to say again that your goal is always to fade. And fading does not mean that individual with a disability doesn't need support It just means that the support would not come from you anymore and would come from the natural supports in that environment. I'm gonna now pass it on to Jean and Corey. And Jean and Corey are coworkers. And Jean is gonna start off by sharing with you guys a little bit about what she does at the company Thrive Mighty. And then I think she's gonna share an example of what she does. And then Corey will also kind of chat with you guys and share a little bit about herself as well. So Jean, you want to pull up the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Jean, take it away.
Social media consultant at Thrive Mighty. My name is Jean Huff. I am the social media consultant. I also help with Thrive Mighty, their social media, and inclusive networking. Edit pictures. I went to my photos using editing. The picture put emojis in Snapchat account. Then if you're done with it, please send them by email. I created a caption. Corey and we did some ideas to think about create a caption together. We use a template to help us write down our ideas. Pick emojis. They have a different kind of emojis. You can choose your find your favorite emojis is. For the sample, if you get your mommy, some samples would be exercise ideas, inspirations, emotional quotes, thoughts, biking, and posting a question. Social media posts are samples. We did some workout with Corey, and you have to use the exercise equipment. We went to events with Thrive Mighty in the picture of me and Corey doing a pose like a superheroes. Apprentice director, social media consultant. Two clients, biography, social media posts, event assistant, presentations, training, and exercise. I working with Thrive Mighty. Corey and we are in a garden together. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jean. And so now Jean's gonna show us really quick how she does her editing. And while, Jean, I'm gonna send you the picture in the chat. Jean, can I share with everyone while you're getting that ready a little bit about how the job started?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think it's really something nice to share, especially since we're still kind of in this virtual space. But Jean actually got this job as a social media consultant with Thrive Mighty during COVID, and so this whole position has been virtual. So I think it's really exciting that this was something that that became available during a time when a lot of people are losing their jobs and having a hard time finding jobs. And I also think as we're all navigating the virtual space and Zoom, Jean and Corey really figured out a way to work with one another. Okay, Jean, you want to share your screen again to show everyone?
If we want to add the picture, there's a toolbox. On this box, it shows something. If you see the edit part, you have to click the top part. If you want to edit the pictures, they also have tools they use, like filters and adjustments. The adjustments also help the picture a little bit clearly to see. If you don't edit the pictures, the very bottom is that yellow called Save and Copy. If you want to click it, then it Save and Copy do it for you.
Awesome, Jean. And then what happens after you save the picture?
Then you have to send it by email.
And then you send it by email. Okay, thank you, Jean. It's always fun to see how you edit pictures, and you're very creative in how you do it. I am going to let Corey introduce herself. And as she's introducing herself, I will share the template you guys use when you work together.
Awesome, thank you. Very nice. So my name's Corey Noner. I am Jean's coworker at Thrive Mighty, and I am also the program manager for Thrive Mighty. We're a local nonprofit based out of the cities. So yeah, I've been working with Jean for about 9-ish months. Maybe I think we're getting close to 10 now, Jean. But we started during COVID. Nicole was Jean's job coach when we first started. And now it's just Jean and I that meet, and we use this template here that Nicole has shared for our weekly meetings. So Jean does one social media post for us each week, and we have a weekly Zoom meeting. However, we're hoping to do some in-person stuff as the weather gets nice, where we can kind of space out a little bit. But so with this template here, we lay out our schedule for the entire month of what it is that her post is going to be. And then for that day, I'll highlight what it is that our focus is. So as we plan out the month, Jean and I work together to come up with ideas. So what Jean would like to post about and what Thrive Mighty as an organization needs her to post about as well. And then we just find a balance and kind of plug it in. And then the second thing that we do at our meeting is the photo for the post. Sometimes this means that Jean has to take photos. So as you notice, that one that she just edited was actually from an event. We had Jean come to the event to take photos throughout, and then she was able to then use those photos for her content that she was able to create. And sometimes we take them over Zoom, kind of like screenshots, and other times they're photos that I'll just send her in advance so that she can then edit them. I definitely would say that Jean editing her photos is the best part, or like the favorite part of our sessions. Jean really loves it, and it's really fun for me to watch as well. So next, what we do is we come up with the caption for the post. We have an introduction kind of explaining what it's about, and then content. So this is kind of why it is that we're posting what we are. And then we always have an action step for our followers. So what it is that they could be doing, and then kind of a conclusion. So however Jean would like to sign it. And as you can see in this template, there's kind of multiple choices. Like there's kind of option 1, option 2. Sometimes if we're a little short on time, if there's more than one photo to edit, I'll have some options laid out and Jean will choose which ones she likes. And other times we'll work together to come up with the caption and fill it in as we go. Next, what Jean does is she emails the photos and the caption to me. And then we will fill out her timesheet. And then the last thing that we do is we review and reflect as to how the session went. So I discovered early on that Jean loves emojis. She loves to communicate via emojis or pictures, more so than words, which is great. So we have a bunch of different emojis here, along with a written description about it. And we're able to figure out kind of what went well with our session that day and what could use some improvement. And then from there, I take this information and use it as we plan out our next session in terms of how we spend our time. So it allows me to further be able to create those opportunities for Jean to be independent without needing much support from me during our sessions. And then also being able to continue to build and expand on her skill sets, which has come so far. So that is a little bit, or kind of a little rundown as to how our sessions go each week. Yeah, that is what I've got.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Jean. So yeah, like Corey had mentioned, I was supporting Jean in the beginning as her job coach, and then I faded and completely left those supports, and Jean and Corey worked together. Okay, I think we went a little over time. We were going to stop at 3:40, so we can take some time for questions. I do want to just share really quickly that in the PowerPoint that I believe you guys will be getting, I did provide 3 resources. One is the essential elements of customized employment. So that's something to look at if you are interested in customized employment and more of what the steps are and what's involved. I included an article from Mark Golden Associates about natural supports that provides more information and guidance. And then I included an organization called Starfire. If you haven't heard of them, they are a wonderful organization in Cincinnati, and their whole model is creating meaningful relationships in the community and building off of people's interests and skills, and connecting people with disabilities in the community to have those relationships, to be more included, and again, having those barriers reduced, such as, you know, if 2 people enjoy movies and they live close to each other, then, you know, one person could offer that ride to that person, so that that wouldn't be a barrier. So thank you guys again for having us. And I think now we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Nicole and Jean and Corey. That was just amazing to see it all happen in front of us, and very easy for me to transfer or translate this type of natural supports in a school or education setting as well as work. And so it was very helpful just to have those visuals and to have you all here together. Thank you so much. But yeah, does anyone have any questions?
No, I want to share Sally's comment around just like appreciating the presentation and the way you all like laid it out and had the different, like it was very understandable from like a discovery and how can we, like that was really helpful. I guess a question that's raising in my head to Sally's point is what seems most transferable about that kind of discovery technique under customized employment into the education, like into an education or higher education setting? Like what can we try to pull from it, either at a high level, like concepts or even really concrete things that like we could help think about in our work?
Yeah, Ryan, first of all, thank you for saying that. I was going to share, but I didn't. But I think now I'm 8 months pregnant. So it's sometimes when I put things out there, it doesn't always make sense. So that's great that it did. And a great question. I think that, a lot of people that I work with at Mark Golden Associates specifically do this process at the transition level. And I think now, as a former teacher, I would have loved to know more about the discovery process, because I think when you're in the school, you're constantly, especially in transition, you're constantly supporting your students and figuring out, what are their interests, what are their skills towards employment. And what's great about the way discovery approaches things is it's factual, it's not comparative. So really sitting there and I think if paras and teachers are trained in this process and really do those observations of what's taking place, how is someone completing a task, what supports are they using? Is it best for visuals? Are they constantly getting that verbal feedback? Do they need that verbal feedback? What happens if you take away some of that support? Allowing people to problem solve. And then what I also would say is doing discovery on experiences that exist or are going to exist. So when people have those opportunities to volunteer or get those internships or work, again, doing discovery on that. What were things that was helpful in that environment for that individual? What did they enjoy about it? How do you know they enjoyed it? What supports were given so that it could translate? So, if someone really benefited from working with their coworkers, then it might be something that eventually, if it's around employment, that it would be really beneficial to find a job opportunity where there is a lot of opportunities to engage and interact with your coworkers and colleagues and get that support. But yeah, great question. And I do believe that Mark Golden Associates and maybe some of the other providers, they have something specifically called extended discovery, where you build upon all those experiences and then you continue to take those observations and write those descriptive notes that can be shared across all settings, especially in the post-secondary education space. It's very important to make sure that you're documenting, what's working and what's not, so that the people that are being supported have that information to make future decisions about what they want to do and about their career.
So if I were to extend what you just said a little bit, if somebody was in a post-secondary setting and they had an internship or an apprenticeship or a work study, you could do a discovery process about that experience in order to help them for that transition to a community integrated employment.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think something that's, I don't know how everyone does their evaluation process, but I think the big difference is discovery is really providing that descriptive evaluation, descriptive observation, as opposed to an evaluation checklist. Can someone do this? Can they do that? Yes, that provides information, but the descriptiveness of how someone's doing something, then you really can translate that into different settings. And, again, if people need certain prompts or those visuals or the supports, or, if someone struggles with time and their coworker is constantly saying at the internship, let's go to work, let's go to lunch. And you might want to make sure that that translates into different settings. So if people had a peer in their class that just reminded them, hey, it's time to go, and that's all they need, how wonderful, instead of, having all these alarms. And so again, making sure it's getting documented what is supportive in those environments and how can it be translated elsewhere, and also really paying attention to what that employee, intern, job seeker, student enjoys, because we want to make sure that everyone's enjoying what they're doing, and that's part of it as well.
One of the things that I really try to talk to my teachers about is documenting the level of independence by actually just telling, like, how many interactions do you as an adult have to have with this student, which sounds really data and not descriptive, but I feel like that's one of the pieces of the description that really defines like whether a level of independence is changing or not. And I can't get it into people's heads that that's something that is of utmost importance when you're asking, is there another way that I'm missing of telling people how we demonstrate a level of independence?
That's a great question. I would say, in terms of, you're speaking about paras.
I think paras specifically, because that tells us like what level of independence does this student have. And I think like people will say like, oh, super independent. And then I'll see, Jiminy Cricket sitting on their shoulder and interacting with them every 90 seconds. And it's like, oh, that's not really super independent. That's emerging.
Right. So something I'm going to just share with you briefly. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but this is something that I've shared with job coaches I've worked with before. And can you guys see this?
Yeah.
So this is a document where people have to be very descriptive about what the supports are and what's given. So, here's a cheat sheet of, was that the job coach? Was that you as a para that provided that support? Was that natural support? Because again, if it's someone in that environment, that's wonderful. If it's okay, everyone needs support. And then if it was independent, and then below circling, was that given as a verbal instruction, a gesture, hand over hand, other, and then filling this out more descriptively. So this is something that I found to be useful to have everyone kind of on the same page of really visually seeing what supports are given, how you're giving it, what that specific location is, what they're doing, notes. And I think, again, without knowing specific examples, what I would say for paras is, if they're going with someone in a classroom or on an internship, what I would keep challenging them is, again, that the role of your job is to eventually fade. So that should be kind of like how are you going to figure that out? And if you notice that you're always providing the support of, going up to the teacher and asking for the assignment, how can you not do that anymore? Is there a student that sits by them where like they could go grab it for that person? And how are you going to make sure that they know to do that? So fostering that relationship. So, in the notes section, paying attention to who's in that environment and what are natural supports in that environment that can replace what you're doing. Not sure if that answered your question, but I just wanted to share that that's kind of another tool and resource. The other thing that I have found to be beneficial when supporting job coaches, or paras, is sometimes to really create a task or environment where they're getting that support and understanding what that's like. So I can also share some of those activities with you as well. But sometimes doing something that's very hands-on and having someone else document how you're doing it can kind of help with the perspective or mindset.
Nicole, that was great. Is that something you could share with us when we send out that?
Yeah,
that
I'm
form?
happy to share.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
It's a great example of moving not just to independence, but to interdependence with your natural supports. Like I constantly have trouble sometimes with that word. We want people to be independent because we're all interdependent, right? We're on each other. And so natural supports is a way of creating interdependence versus maybe dependence on somebody. So thanks for that example.
Yeah, and I just noticed, and I sent it to the wrong person, but Sarah, I love that phrase. Our job is to work ourselves out of the job. So I think even just repeating that is a great, first step.
Mm-hmm. Liz, were you going to say something else? I kind of cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to reference what Sarah wrote in the chat. And then also, it just reminds me so much of the role of the paras in school. I mean, you're making that connection, but it really is to assist, advance, and look for those natural supports. And those are best practices, right? For special ed assistants. And I love hearing those examples.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, I have a question, Nicole. When you are no longer with Jean and Corey, and you've kind of set things up, then how does a job coach continue to interact with
Yeah, Liz, that's a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. So typically, it's all dependent on the person that I'm supporting. And so, Jean and I, we check in and kind of see what she thinks is needed. But typically people that I support, I'll do check-ins with that employer or that environment to kind of see how things are going. I will share a quick story that, we're in a different world right now. So doing things virtually of sending emails and phone calls. But, a couple years ago, I was supporting someone who had a job at a car dealership. And I would call every couple weeks and just say, how are things going? Is everything great? Everything going well? And the manager there would say, yeah, everything's good. This guy, Brian, that was working there is doing great. Everything's wonderful. And I really wanted to see Brian at work. So I asked him, I said, can I come and see what you're doing and how it's going? Well, so I went there and Brian worked 2-hour shifts. And when I got there, he probably worked for 15 minutes. And then he asked his manager for money and then went to the vending machine and bought some food. And then he went in the back and watched YouTube videos. And I said, what? And the manager said, oh, no, it's fine. It's great. And I said, do you let all your employees do that? Do you give them all money to get food at the vending machine? And he said, no. And I said, so what? I mean, you're paying him still, but this isn't what is supposed to be happening. So I do think sometimes having those in-person conversations is helpful. And I think, you constantly educating those businesses. So I do think the ongoing support is important because a lot of times employers change, supervisors change, managers change, coworkers change. So as a job coach, if you put all the time into helping support and build those relationships, you might not be the first person that they're going to call if they're getting promoted or they're leaving. And sometimes no one tells you. So it is good to, support that employee. Again, make sure you're not overstepping boundaries if they're okay with you making those phone calls and providing that support. But I think it's really important to do the ongoing check-in just to see if things are changing or sometimes new tasks come up and they forget to think, oh, you know what, could you come in and just help us, set this up of last time you created these visuals that were really beneficial. Could we do that again? So again, I would connect with the person you're supporting to make sure it's okay. But ultimately, yes, providing some sort of ongoing support is always helpful.
Thanks. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we are at 4 o'clock, but we are willing to stay for further questions. But I want to make sure we do our poll right now so that we can get as many people as possible to get some feedback. And then please stay if you'd like to continue this conversation. And we will be sending out, again, a follow-up with the slide deck here and also information about our next learning community event. It will be on Tuesday, May 25th, same time, 3 to 4. And we'll be meeting with Mark Winters from Beacon Specialized Living, and he's going to be sharing about person-centered planning. And as Nicole was talking about the discovery process, it's so related to person-centered planning and really paying attention to what's important to the person and what they really enjoy. So it will be a really good next step after hearing about natural supports. And it also sees, as I think about models of inclusive post-secondary initiatives, I can see how a job coach or even a natural supports coach in maybe some social environments could be really a key person in that post-secondary setting. Life coach, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'm not sure if people are still poll taking or not. People are saying goodbye. That's fine. We'll stick around if anyone wants to stay.
I have to run for a daycare pickup. I did want to, one more note, this is more for Jean than anyone, but Jean, I saw in your profile, I also went to Orono schools as my school. So if you ever, I'm really worried about engaging you on who the teachers are, because I'm sure they're no longer there from when so a little bit worried about that, but I just wanted to say I also went to Orono schools. So thank you again
Yep.
for sharing today.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye. So I guess that is my question, Nicole. I think Sarah said life coach, but I also think about these social settings and navigating campuses and, just the independence of, is Dawn still here? No, she's not here still. Navigating campuses and transportation and classes and all the different pieces. I see it related, but in terms of acquiring some skills and how to do it for each person would be different. I'm just trying to figure out what that would be exactly called.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do some of the programs that are already set up, do they have names for people in these roles?
Primarily it's peer mentors.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just have peer mentors that serve sort of different roles, right? So it could be a peer mentor that's for Jean, we call it homework teamwork. So the peer mentor that they do homework together, right, Jean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have peer mentors that you hang out with where you guys do social stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else, but it'll be easier when she's on campus. But at some universities, they have peer mentors that are also supporting a student with an intellectual disability, for example, in living, in terms of the dorm and, the food service and all of that. A lot of times they provide training for like the RAs in the dorms, so that they're kind of part of that scaffolding or framework of support that's just sort of there naturally, so that if a student needs help in a particular situation, they kind of have people like that across the campus.
Yeah. And Jean, when you go to college, I can't believe you're leaving so soon. Do they have like different activities on campus that you can participate in?
Yes.
So I would imagine, Jean, if I'm trying to think what I did in college, and again, here comes the brain, but I don't know if there's like a photography club or bowling club or things you do in the evenings, and then you get connected to people in those environments that maybe live close to you and can, say, let's go walk together. I feel like that would be something nice and helpful. And I know when I was in college, getting ready to go to things on time was difficult. So, always having someone knock on your door and say, it's time to go is helpful. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think that college, it's obviously a very different setting than work. And I think that it could still follow the same process of finding what those natural supports are and how other people navigate campus. But I think it would probably just take a lot longer to create a lot of those relationships and really put the pieces together, but
yeah,
definitely doable.
I know Jan Bechtel at Millersville, they've created sort of a informal network all across the campus. So staff members, even people as that are just sort of there on campus, like that are doing landscaping, right? That are there as part of the campus community, and again provide that little bit of training just to have sort of that natural support that's sort of embedded all throughout the campus.
Yeah, it's great.
Jean, what's one of your favorite social things that you've done this year in college?
Modified journalism.
Yeah, that's the degree that you're working on.
Yeah.
Jean, what about, you shared with me the other day you won something at an event. What was that event?
And what did you win?
Yeah, maybe you've won a lot of things, so that might be a hard question. I think you won. Didn't you win cereal?
I also play Epic Bingo. Then
No.
I won. Then I have different types of box of cereals.
Yeah, they sent you like 8 flavors, right?
Yes.
That's
If
cool.
at the old style, single serving, the fun packs or whatever,
Yeah.
and they actually mailed it.
That's awesome.
I know, right? Epic Bingo, right? How many people play that at one time? It's all on Zoom this year, and I think there's what, like 300-400 people. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But they have some really good prizes, don't they? That they give away for winning. The iPads. I mean, it's a really sweet stuff.
Jean, do you have to be a student to attend?
To play bingo, the Epic Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
probably.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I wanted to thank all of you again. I kind of connected with Sally last week during the one of the events for the disability, what was it? Disability policy seminar. So thank you all for inviting me, and I'll be glad to learn more from everyone. And nice to connect with, some other organizations that are out there as I graduate with my MSW this summer. So just having more connections is always helpful. So thanks.
Thanks
for
Great.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Stephanie. I have another question, Nicole.
Yeah.
So isn't the discovery process also something that's used, or maybe Alyssa can answer too, isn't the discovery process also used in vocational rehabilitation in the pre-ETS, pre-employment training?
Well, this is a topic we are digging into at the state level as well, with how we can help schools embed customized employment strategies into school transition programming. It's interesting because, our federal agency is the Rehabilitation Services Administration, and they tell us that discovery and customized employment cannot be a part of pre-employment transition services. However, it's silly to me because discovery to me is just a different way of kind of going through some of those pre-ETS processes, like helping a person and those that are around them get to know them better and help them make good planning decisions. So I'll say this, it's not that we won't still engage or provide it. It's just we can't necessarily call it pre-ETS. It's again kind of silly. But anyway, it's actually a meeting that I'm going to be having with a large school district this week. Is, we're seeing that there are some students with more significant support needs not getting work-based learning experiences. And I think they need that customized approach for work experiences while they're in high school. And I'm just like, that's just not acceptable. We need to be using some of these creative approaches to help make that happen. So that's definitely, I just got an interesting, I wonder, Nicole, if you got it, Virginia Commonwealth University just issued a publication called Discovering Me, where they outline some work that they've done out that way, I think in Virginia, with schools. So it's kind of like what we've been trying to work on here in Minnesota, but they seem to be a few steps ahead of us. And we're looking at that right now as, that's kind of an interesting, I guess, a publication to kind of walk you through how schools can take some of these, again, strategies and start making them happen at the school level.
Yeah. Jean, can I share about what you did when you were in high school?
Yeah.
So, because Jean, we actually utilized the person-centered planning. She did that. You were maybe 10th or 11th grade, I think.
Yes.
It was the first time, and then that was good to help with that roadmap, right? In terms of kind of figuring out what it is that she wanted to be doing. And then we used the discovery process. We initially did one that was sort of a independent, right? Where you did it on your own.
Yes.
And then we were introduced to Nicole and we did a more thorough discovery. And then we've updated Jean's person-centered planning a couple different times, actually, which has been really helpful, hasn't it, Jean?
Yeah.
Because there's been quite an evolution for Jean in terms of her interest areas, right, of animals and, animal care and stuff like that. And then I think Nicole would maybe agree. One of the things that we learned, for example, Jean volunteered at Galewood Farms. And one of the things that she really liked, it wasn't just simply the work with the animals, but it was also the teaching opportunities for the classes, with the younger kids that were attending camps.
Then we did the gardens.
Yep, and the gardens, right. But it was also the people, right? It was a really strong network of just super fun, good people. And we kind of just on our own developed natural supports for her through the staff, right? And so she just was becoming part of that learning and working community.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I found it really beneficial, Alyssa, in terms of sort of her work, her journey, in terms of where she's going for her career.
Right. And I think like this guide that I put the link to and what we've talked about with some of the efforts that we are working on here is, you know, discovery can definitely happen like in a condensed period of time, but we can also look at it as maybe an extended period of time while you're in school. So you could start here and see what we learn and then build on that over time. That's kind of how I see like the vision of it. And so like just what you explained, Mary, and what you did, Jane, is, you know, then you get some experience and then you build more skills and, you know, and then where does that lead you from there? It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's really exciting to hear that you guys are working on that, because I do think that you know, from other colleagues that do customize employment, I think, you know, everyone always says and agrees that if this was happening earlier on, you know, then obviously a lot of people wouldn't finish transition and then say, now what? So, you know, and great stuff is going on in transition and people are getting great experience. And even in classes, just, you know, doing observations on what people are enjoying, what they're enjoying about it, what supports are helping them, to kind of figure out, you know, what would be the next step for them.
There was just before this, there was a webinar by Think College to just go over sort of what they're able to provide as support and services. And one of the statistics that they cited during their presentation, that I know there's a similar statistic for high school students with intellectual disabilities, but they cited for students with intellectual disabilities that attended a TIPSED, which is a college program, just the ones that are funded by the federal grants. If they have paid employment while they're attending college, they are 15 times more likely to have paid employment after they complete their college. And there's a similar, you know, startling statistic about paid employment, and I think it's before, Liz, you might know this, it's before their age, before they're in high school. Yeah, before they're 18, right? Yep. I mean, so it's so huge. Critical.
So important. Yep.
And even the college statistic, they said it wasn't the same if it was an internship that wasn't paid. The statistic wasn't the same. It was that much higher when it was a paid job versus intern or volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would think a paid internship would be this. Did they differentiate that? I think it's if it's paid employment, whether it's a
distinction of being paid or not paid.
Yeah.
I know that statistic in terms of high school. I mean, it's one of the things I quote, maybe not exactly, but I always say it's one of the number one indicators for success after high school is that you've had paid employment while you're in high school. And I think, and I really have been stressing that, you know, we can support some short-term experiences where you're paid, but when I say it, it's like what our ultimate goal should be a competitive integrated job while you're in high school. It doesn't have to be your final job that you're going to keep forever.
Right.
But many of us had that opportunity while we were in high school. Everyone should have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think this is a whole nother side of things we're doing at Inclusive Networking, but I think that's also really bringing the businesses as a part of this is, you know, they should be paying people and there should be more experiences that are available and really understanding how to include and integrate, you know, interns with disabilities. And I think the more that they're involved in this as well, then, you know, I know for a lot of teachers, it takes a lot of work to find these opportunities. So businesses also need to be willing and open open their doors to it.
Mhm. Excellent.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks so much.
great.
Great presentation.
Mhm.
Really great.